Hello and welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Sean Zerillo, joined today by Collin Whitchurch to help you break down a 15-game slate for Tuesday, June 24th. Unfortunately, no day games today, no day games yesterday. Collin, aside from teams wanting to maximize ticket sales, not wanting to put people in the summer daytime heat, what is the justification for Major League Baseball not having day games on these days after the College World Series has ended, after the NBA and NHL finals have ended? It is a draft week for both of those leagues, but MLB has a chance to own the days during the summer. And instead of competing or, while they're competing with the WNBA for viewership at night, they could just have day games on an island during the day. And people, frankly, clamoring for them online. So do you think this is a mistake by MLB not having day games on days like this, forcing teams to basically rotate, who's hosting these games? So it's not always the Cubs or a team that we're accustomed to playing the daytime. What are your thoughts in general on the lack of day baseball that we're getting now that all the other sports have ended?
Well, I'm kind of torn, to be honest, because I think that, and I could be wrong about this, it's just kind of off the cuff, but I think that from a business standpoint, it makes more sense to play at night. I think that you're going to get better ticket sales. I think you're going to probably get better TV ratings. I think that people like you and me and people in our bubble are going to be clamoring for day games because we're baseball junkies and we want to watch baseball from the time we wake up until the time we go to bed. But that's not the people who they're generally targeting for things like this. And I think it's kind of funny too, because watch, we're going to get to October and that first weekend, the first round of games, those wild card series, whatever they call them nowadays, and they're going to put games on at 3:00 on a Tuesday, which are not primetime slots, as you mentioned. So right now, they're not doing it because they want to maximize the TV ratings and the ticket sales at night. And then when the playoffs come, they want to have every game separate, and they're going to start having these day games. But the reason I'm torn is because, like I mentioned, I want to watch baseball all day. I work from home. I'm fortunate enough to work from home. I've got a TV right in front of me in my office, and I just want to be able to watch baseball all day, especially at this time when no other sports are going, except for the WNBA, which isn't going to play during the day except for on the weekends. I want to watch baseball all day, so I want there to be more day games, but I kind of get it. If they're going to do it now, do it in October, too, because it doesn't make any sense to have a Mets-Phillies playoff game on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern or whatever. Like, that shit treat it like a as big of a matchup as it is. Give it the big time slot, build your whole brand around it. I don't know.
Yeah, those Mets Phillies games, if they're playing on the same day as another team, they'll stick those in the 7 p.m. primetime slot, basically regardless of
Sure.
whenever it is. A team like the Tigers, who are featured in your best bet today, are the team who's likelier to get that 3:00 spot, and you're much likelier to see Tarek Skubal pitching in the afternoon than anybody from the Mets or Phillies. And the Tigers and A's first five under 4, your best bet for Tuesday's slate. I believe it's Skubal against Luis Severino. I could be wrong on the A's starter, but why do you like this bet? And then what number do you like this down to? I made this total about 3.8, so I certainly lean to the under as well.
Yeah, it's funny, though, just one last quick point. I believe Game 5 of Detroit-Cleveland last year, Skubal was like a 4:00 first pitch or something.
I don't know why, but like in my head, when I see Skubal pitching, when I picture Skubal pitching, it's with daylight and like the crowd popping off behind him like during the day. So for some reason, I always picture Skubal pitching at daytime at Comerica. I don't know why. That's just the image that pops in my head. So I view him as a day game pitcher.
Exactly. But as for my handicap on Athletics Tigers, it actually has little to do with Skubal. He's the pitcher you don't want to worry about in a matchup like this. Luis Severino is kind of the target here. Generally, I feel like looking at home road splits on starting pitchers when trying to handicap a matchup is noise. I don't think you probably put that much stock in it generally, Sean. I could be wrong. You could correct me. The sample sizes are generally small. You don't take into consideration quality of opponent, etc. But things are different this year with Sutter Health Park in Sacramento and how athletic starters have performed there. You can find nothing more stark than the performance of Luis Severino. From the moment he signed with the A's, I think there were some concerns that he might not be a great fit for this AAA ballpark that they're playing in this year, and it has proven insanely true this year. He's made 10 starts at Sutter Health. He has a 6.79 ERA there. He has 6 starts on the road this year. He's allowed 4 earned runs total in 6 starts on the road this year. We're talking about an ERA difference of 6 runs. His ERA is under 1 on the road this year. It is over 6 at home. Obviously, those will regress a little bit. But opponents have an 827 OPS against Severino at home, a 480 OPS on the road. He's allowed 7 home runs at home this year. He's allowed 4 extra base hits on the road this year. The quality of opponent in those road games has been okay. Not great, not terrible. Seattle, Milwaukee, Texas, San Francisco, Houston, Kansas City. His worst outing of those 6 came against Texas when he got fortunate to allow just 1 earned run. He scattered 8 hits over 5 innings. Obviously, I don't think the difference between Severino at home and on the road is this extreme or going to continue to be this extreme, but I do think it's some degree of extreme because he's playing his home games in a AAA stadium. We've seen players complain about playing in this ballpark just from the quality of facility, not to mention, the dimensions, the type of, area they play in. And when he goes in the road, he gets to play in real ballparks. I do think we might be seeing a little bit of offensive regression from Detroit right now. They've lost 5 of 8. They struggled a little bit against Tampa over the weekend. So I think Severino's in a good spot here, pitching in Detroit against the Tigers. And as we mentioned, the other side of that matchup is Tarek Skubal. Don't have to worry about Skubal against this Athletics lineup. I bet this last night, first 5 under 3.5. And today I do see there's 1-4 out there as of this recording. I believe BetMGM has under 4 at -125. Love that, but I'll bet under first 5 under 3.5 as well.
Just wanted to highlight Denzel Clark, and him being in or out of this game would make a difference for me.
Oh,
Clark
yeah.
already projects as the best defender in baseball, not the best defensive outfielder, not the best defensive center fielder, the best defender. Period. He
immediately is immediately the Andrelton Simmons of the outfield, like the second he made his MLB debut.
Unbelievable. Just an absolute vacuum cleaner in center field. 8 defensive runs saved in 213 innings. There are 3 guys ahead of him: PCA, Ceddanne Rafaela, and Julio Rodriguez in center field. All of them have played 3 times the number of innings that Denzel Clark has played this season. So Clark is just absolutely spectacular in center field. But 2 games back, they started JJ Bleday in center field, and Clark was on the bench. And that is a humongous, I cannot emphasize how much of a humongous defensive downgrade that is. That's worth about a third of a run to the opposing team on their game total. JJ Bleday -7 in center field this season in about 418 innings. So combined, they've played a neutral center field, but Clark is about +8 in 200 innings. Bleday -7 in about 400 innings.
That's a huge center field in Detroit too. So that's a big outfield to cover. Like, they need him in Detroit more than a lot of different ballparks as well.
Very good point to make. Yes, humongous outfield in Detroit as well. So I would be sketched out by that under if Clark is not in the lineup. I think he does make a massive difference for that Athletics team, but he's making great catches every game. He made basically a game-ending catch in one of their wins against the Guardians, or their win against the Guardians. I think they try to keep him in the lineup as often as they can, and he's not a good hitter. He's actually an atrocious hitter, but they're going to try to let him figure it out because he is such an unbelievably valuable defender. I should also mention, just with regard to your over, the A's only really seem to be scoring when Nick Kurtz is homering right now.
Yeah.
Their offense is very flat. Rooker's not hitting.
Soderstrom has cooled off.
Yeah. I just feel like in general, the A's, they kind of need to beat you in low scoring games at the moment. They need like quality pitching to get by you. I would lean under in that game. Obviously, most Skubal lines are going to be overinflated at this point, and with the A's playing as poorly as they are, you're probably not going to find any value betting on the Tigers. But I made this money line about -275, so I am in line with the market. That's my first 5 line. I made the full game money line -240, so there's slight value on the Athletics at +260, but I would need it to get to at least +300 before I'd be interested in betting that. Collin, I should just mention before we move off this game, because it is Skubal, what kind of number would you need to bet against him?
Well, you're talking to like the #1 Tigers hater on planet Earth. I feel like every time I come on this podcast, I'm finding some way to bet against Detroit. So I might not be the best person to ask, but you mentioned +300. I think that's probably, I was going to say in the +250 to +300 range. So you mentioned Severino's been good on the road. Tigers offense has kind of cooled off a little bit, but the A's offense, as we mentioned, has cooled off even more significantly, except for the batting average of Jacob Wilson, AL Rookie of the Year favorite, who I absolutely love. But yeah, plus 250 to plus 300, I might consider Oakland. But generally, just looking at this total, that was the first thing I looked at last night, knowing Severino's road reputation and Skubal's brilliance on the other side. And Skubal's actually coming off of maybe his worst start of the year. He walked 2 and gave up a run or 2 against the Pirates' atrocious offense, which that qualifies as a bad Skubal start at this point. Best pitcher on the planet. So we'll see if he rebounds here against another scuffling offense.
You did unfortunately use the banned word from this show, which is Oakland. So we are required to give out a fact about the town and the city of Sacramento as compensation. Sacramento, the founding spot and the home of the Pony Express mail service from the 1860s. So that is your Sacramento fun fact for today as repayment for our mentioning of the one banned word that we have on this show.
I didn't even know I said it. I didn't even know I said it. Like I'll have to go back and listen to the tape. I believe you that I said it, but it didn't even register that I said it.
Yeah, it floats out into the ether there. Listen, we had some trouble adjusting to Guardians after they changed their name for a minute. There were a lot of Indians mentions the first year of that change. So we'll adjust. We'll get better as we go. Also, I've had a lot more reps being able to say Sacramento and self-correcting than you have. And I think that's your first reprimand of saying the O word on the show. Yeah. I've had probably 6 or 7 this year. So
should just call them Vegas. Even in my notes, I would write Oakland and then delete it and write the Athletics. But even with my notes being devoid of Oakland mentions, I still let it slip out.
What drives me nuts is on websites where they list out all the teams, like on bullpen reports and stuff like that. Some of them have moved them to the top as with the A, the Athletics. Some of them have left them in the O spot and just deleted the Oakland part and just left Athletics. So yeah, I'm constantly like trying to find where the A's are organizationally by alphabetical, order. My best bet for today, though, another A team. It's the Astros at minus 138. I projected this money line up at minus 160. So I like the Astros all the way up. I would take them to minus 150 as my best bet for today. Bet Labs also put this bet in their account as well. So I'm sure they saw some systems and action labs that aligned with Houston today. But this is the better team the better team defense in a game where I expect a decent number of balls in play because you have Framber Valdez going against Ranger Suarez. Both strikeout rates around 22-25%. Both ground ball rates north of 50%. So team defense is a little bit more emphasized when these guys are on the mound. Astros second in outs above average. League average in defensive runs saved. The Phillies below average by both metrics. 16th in OAA, 28th by DRS. And I do project a pretty big gap between these two teams defensively. Phillies offense hitting a little bit better over the past week. They were struggling. They were below average with Bryce Harper out of their lineup banged up. They have gotten back, I think, up to 12th since Harper's been out of the lineup. Just scored a bunch of runs against the Mets. But their bullpen remains a bottom 10 unit since Jose Alvarado has gone down. Now, I often discuss the Phillies have two clearly very defined A bullpens and B bullpens. So there is a difference in the quality of relief pitching that you get, whether you're getting the A bullpen with Kerkering and Romano versus getting the B guys, Hernandez, Taijuan Walker, etc. So, the bullpen stats can get masked a little bit, but overall, I do think the defensive quality of the Astros in a game where both guys are going to be putting the ball on the ground, and then also the offensive splits for Houston as well. I've mentioned this multiple times this season, but you want to bet against or bet the unders on Houston when they're facing a right-handed starter, and you want overs or Astros money line when they're facing left-handed pitching. Number one offense against lefties this season, a 131 WRC+. They fall to 17th against righties with a 101 WRC+, a difference in OPS of 811 versus 710. So Astros significantly better against lefties and the better defensive team in a game between two high ground ball percentage starting pitchers.
Let me ask you a question, Sean, about
go ahead.
Two ground ball, just because you mentioned the ground ball merchants. No home run in this game is plus 340. Does that interest you at all? Is that, I'm just curious your off the cuff thoughts on something like that with this game.
Yeah, I lean under here. I make this total about 7.1. The juice on it is minus 115. But, when you show value on an over or an under, or when you lean that direction, there should be correlated value in the prop market on, for example, like Framber under hits, or, Suarez under earned runs, things like that. And certainly no home runs correlates with, the under or guys not allowing runs here, pitchers pitching successfully. So, no, I don't have a price that I can give out. I
Sure.
can't think of it off of the top of the
Yeah.
head, but that's certainly a direction I would lean. Suarez career 0.8 homers per nine, Fromber 0.7. So both guys much better than the league average at suppressing home runs. It seems like an interesting prop stat.
You'd have to factor in the bullpen with the home run bets too. Like
Sure.
guys are going to come in who give it up. So anyway, you mentioned the ground ball merchants on that, and I was like, I gotta be curious what the no home run market is there.
Absolutely, and a low total. Consider the low total as well, and the home run rates of these guys career wise. That's definitely an interesting stat for tonight. What book is that at?
FanDuel has plus 340. That was the first one I found it at.
Very cool. Yeah, market
around.
I'll definitely poke around at and see what else is out there. I think 3-1 or better would certainly be a fun poke to make alongside that game. Is that something you're capable of putting in an SGP with the under or anything else, or they don't let you do that?
It does not look like it's parlayable at FanDuel. If I had to guess, Bet365 probably is the book that lets you, if any of them. We'll have to take a look there.
Yeah, very interesting. Good shout out by you there. Let's move on to our favorite underdogs on today's slate. You aligned, or you co-signed on both of the ones that I'm going to give out, but let's start with yours first. That's the red hot Tampa Bay Rays, who are within striking distance of the Yankees in the American League East. I've kind of maintained all year that one of the Rays or Jays will make the playoffs. Right now, it looks like both could potentially get in. So give me your thoughts on Tampa Bay for today, and then any futures thoughts or thoughts you have on this team going forward, because it seems like they're starting to round in form. It doesn't seem like they got positive medical updates on Shane McClanahan, but Junior Caminero really starting to rake, and this offense as a whole really started to get hot.
Yeah. As you mentioned, my two favorite underdogs on this slate are the two that you're about to give out. I'll let you talk about those. I want to give a little bit more variety. I found a third underdog I like. I do like this underdog quite a bit. It's Tampa today on the road against the Kansas City Royals. I just talked about not looking too heavily into home road splits for pitchers, and then proceeded to cite all of Severino's splits in my Athletics Tigers cap. Here we are with Taj Bradley, who doesn't call a minor league stadium home, but he does call a spring training stadium home this year. The splits aren't quite as stark as they are for Severino. They're not the primary reason for my handicap here, but it's worth noting that Bradley has a 5.55 ERA in 9 starts at Steinbrenner Field, and it's 4.02 in his 6 road starts. I think sometimes we overcorrect a bit, or odds makers do, based on pitching matchups where the lesser quality team has the better pitcher. That's what we're looking at today in Taj Bradley against Chris Bubich. Bubich has been incredible for Kansas City, obviously, this year. It wasn't that long ago that he was actually leading the majors in Baseball Reference WAR for pitchers. He's come down a bit, back down to earth this month. He got lit up by the Yankees 2 starts ago. Struggled a little bit last time out against the Rangers. Now, this is a bet against the split matchups. The Rays are a better offense against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching. And Kansas City is a better offense against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching. So why am I betting on the worst starting pitcher and the team in their lesser offensive split? Well, Kansas City's offense is so bad that even when they're in their better split, they're worse by WRC plus than Tampa in their worst split. The Rays have a 94 WRC plus against lefties this year. Kansas City has an 87 WRC plus against righties. Couple that with the fact that Bradley pitches better away from Steinbrenner Field. The Rays offense just in general seems to be clicking right now, like you mentioned. They're only 2 back of the Yankees in the AL East. We talk about Tampa and Toronto potentially making the playoffs. The AL East is still very up for grabs. The Yankees don't have that division locked down by any means. So I'm comfortable backing Tampa here as an underdog. Plus 115 to plus 120 range is probably where I'd cut it off. And yeah, in the playoff market, I'd say just in general, talking futures, I trust Toronto a little bit more than I trust Tampa, simply based on the fact that I am more confident that Toronto will go out and try to fix their weaknesses at the trade deadline than Tampa. Yeah. I think that they are a really interesting, they've kind of been getting away with the stars and scrubs approach a little bit, and some of the quote-unquote scrubs have broken out. Addison Barger has been incredible for them this year. Lucas and Clement have filled holes admirably. They've gotten nothing out of Anthony Santander this year, who remains on the injured list. And Vladimir Guerrero, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's always seemed kind of more like a second half player to me. Like he kind of starts slow. He's been picking it. He hasn't even started slow this year. He started slow in the power department, but he's been good all year, and I think he'll get even better as the season goes on. So I think there's a very good chance both of these teams make the playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see where they shake out if it does end up being the wild card race against the likes of Cleveland, against whoever doesn't win the AL West, against Seattle. These other teams that, the AL is so shallow right now that like so many of these teams have a shot. A month ago I might have told you that Minnesota was probably my favorite non-division leader, and they have lost 9 of 10 or something like that. They've been absolutely falling apart. So Tampa, absolutely buy as a potential playoff team. Toronto as well. There are like 3 teams in the American League that I think can't make the playoffs. Like it's the White Sox, it's the Athletics, and I guess the Orioles, but the Orioles have played better. Like every other team, even the Angels are sitting here right now, like 2 games under 500. The AL is so incredibly shallow that we're sitting here about to enter the month of July, and virtually the entire league should be acting like they have a shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The AL, tons of depth this year. Almost wish there was like a 7th wild card spot, because then everybody would completely be involved. It seems like somebody's going to get squeezed, like a decent team will get squeezed. One of the AL East teams, or the Astros, or the Mariners, probably going to get squeezed out of the playoff hunt. Ultimately, it'll be one of Boston, Toronto, Tampa, and then Houston or Seattle. One of those 5 teams is not going to make the playoffs. Ultimately, my favorite underdogs for today's slate start with the Texas NAL West team, the Texas Rangers, and the Baltimore Orioles. I bet the under 9.5 in Baltimore on Monday in very similar conditions, 100-degree temperatures on both days. The line on Monday moved down from 10.5 and closed all the way at 9 plus money to the under. Under was clearly the side despite the heat. And again today, bet under 10.5, moved down to 10. Seems like it's going closer to 9.5. So despite the wind and the heat, which would indicate betting the over, I think the market is clearly pushing the under, towards the under on this matchup. Texas has been the best under team this season. Offense remains cold. I believe the under streak system is active for this matchup, but I'm actually very interested in betting on Jacob Latz because he is very good and very interesting pitch modeling metrics. 104 stuff plus, 110 on his fastball, 100 on his changeup, 102 on his slider. A 3.6 expected ERA this season. Has mostly worked out of the bullpen. This will be his 3rd career start, but he did go 5 innings in his last outing. League average strikeout minus walk rate. What I really love is that he gets a lot of cheap outs via the pop-up. 15% career pop-up rate, 11% league average. 15% would put him among the top 5 or 10 starting pitchers in terms of pop-up rate. So 90th percentile or better in terms of pop-up generation, and pop-ups, for me, just as good of a strikeout. No base advancement for the base runners. No chance of anything productive happening unless you drop that pop-up, or the pop-up occurs like deep in a foul territory and the fielder falls over and the runners are able to advance bases as a result. But yeah, pop-ups basically just as good as a strikeout. I do think that gets hidden in Latz's profile, and I think he could be a league average starting pitcher. Now, Charlie Morton this year has pitched much better than he has in years past. The ERA is still high. The expected ERA a little bit lower, but his strikeout minus walk rate, his body ERA, both continue to move in the wrong direction. So I actually prefer the Texas side of this matchup. I gave Latz a pitching advantage over Morton. Texas also in their better split. They're better against righties than they are against lefties. Both teams faced a left-handed starter in this matchup yesterday. Texas, lastly, the better defensive team, 3rd in defensive runs saved, 9 outs above average, project better defensively in my model. Baltimore 24th and 29th, respectively, by those same metrics. No Adley Rutschman for them at the moment, too. So the defensive quality of catcher is a significant downgrade relative to what you can expect. Adley was +5 in DRS this season, 5th among catchers. Gary Sanchez -4, ranks among the worst defensive catchers. So projected Texas -110 here. I make the total about 9.4. I would bet Texas at even money or better, and I'd bet the under down to 10 at minus 115. And then secondly, the Reds and the Yankees. We're going to take the Reds to beat the Yankees for a second consecutive day, but this is Chase Burns' MLB debut. And looking at the minor league numbers for Burns, extremely comparable to what Skeens did in the minors last season. Burns, 13 starts in the minors, 37% strikeout minus walk rate, whip of .77. Skeens, 12 starts in the minors, whip of .94. He was throwing far fewer innings, though. He was throwing about half the number of innings that Burns did. The Pirates were being very careful with him. 42% strikeout rate, or 41% for Skeens. So strikeout rate about 5% higher for Skeens. The whip also, though, about .15 higher, and he was throwing fewer innings, able to air it out a little bit more. So I do think Chase Burns is probably the top pitching prospect on the planet. I know we thought it might be Roki Sasaki or Bubba Chandler or Jackson Jobe earlier in the year. I think it's very evident that it's Chase Burns based upon the quick ascension through the minor leagues. Number 2 pick in the draft last year out of Wake Forest, so he developed extremely quickly. I think Burns is going to be an elite starting pitcher right away. Elite, not good, not above average, elite. I think this is a potential ace level pitcher right out of the gate. So Reds, I make them about plus 125. I would bet them down to plus 135. But then we have the over weather again here today. 95 degrees, 102 real feel, 2 to 3 mile an hour breeze blowing out. Yes, Burns could be elite, but I think in any major league debut, there's blow up potential. And, frankly, Carlos Rodon has not been pitching as well of late as he did earlier in the season. In June, ERA of 4.7, 4.2 expected FIP. His strikeout minus walk rate has gone down about 5% relative to where it was earlier in the year. And I think with Rodon, you always have to be concerned after throwing a large number of innings that the arm will start to decline, feel fatigue, and potentially get injured. It has happened throughout his career. Last piece I want to mention, just in regards to the total and the over, Mark Wegner is a hitter-friendly umpire by my projections. Just a career 52% hit rate for the over, but he's worth about a 3% boost to my run-scoring environment in general. So normally I'd make this total about 9.75. I get it up closer to 10 for Tuesday. Reds down to plus 133, and the over 9.5 up to minus 110. Collin, I know you said you liked both the Reds and the Rangers on today's slate. Just any additional thoughts you have that I might have missed on those games?
Well, I'm really excited about Burns. Anytime we get a chance to talk about prospects here, I'm going to want to weigh in. Jeffrey Paternostro at Baseball Prospectus, their lead prospect writer, actually just wrote a column a week or two ago talking about they do a mid-season top 50 prospects list. And it was about the process of trying to figure out who the new number 1 prospect in baseball is. Now, they do things differently than a couple other outlets. First of all, they don't rank international rookies, so like Sasaki doesn't qualify. Secondly, if a guy's on a major league roster, he's not going to be on the midseason 50, even if he hasn't exhausted his minor league eligibility, his prospect eligibility, I guess you will. But that outlet in particular, which I'm biased for, full disclosure, used to work for Baseball Prospectus, they are very, very averse to ranking pitching prospects number 1 overall. Pitching prospects, obviously way more volatile, but he mentioned 2 that were in the running, and this was before Burns got called up, and it was Chase Burns and it was Bubba Chandler as far as candidates to be the new number 1 prospect in baseball now that Roman Anthony has been promoted. A couple position players that were in the mix as well. I think he ultimately said that if he had to make the list today, Kevin McGonigal of the Tigers.
I was literally about to say, was Kevin McGonigal up there? Yeah, McGonigal was really caught a lot of buzz. Tigers prospect, crushing in the minor leagues. Tigers farm system looks great.
Yeah, I think McGonigal's hitting over 400 at high A right now. He needs to go to Double A Erie ASAP. But Baseball Prospectus hasn't ranked a pitcher number 1 overall on their prospect list since Alex Reyes of the Cardinals. And they ranked him number 1 overall the day before it got announced that he was having Tommy John surgery right before the start of his rookie year. So the fact that Burns is, in consideration shows how strong he is. He's up there with the Jobs. What I was going to ask you is, on a scale of 0 to Steven Strasburg, how excited you are to watch Chase Burns pitch tonight? Because I think if you go like Strasburg is the top of the top, and then Skeens is maybe right there, I'd say Burns is right in that third tier, right below those 2.
Yeah, Jacob Mizrowski was probably about a 7 or an 8 for me, and I think Chase Burns is pushing closer to an 8 or a 9. So I'm pretty excited for this debut. Having a bet, I mean, I had a bet on Mizorowski as well. So
Yeah,
I had a bet on Mizorowski, have a bet on Burns. Also have the over in this game though. So that's like the part of it that I'm like, but I want him to pitch well, you know?
yeah.
So
Well,
there's a little bit of a tug there with regard to the having the Reds and the over. I think when I bet Mizorowski, I only had the Brewers money line. But yeah, I'm
yeah,
pretty excited. This is a big debut tonight. And obviously a big time arm. He can touch 102. He sits 98. So a huge fastball, 2+ breaking balls, looks like an absolutely tremendous prospect.
yeah.
Do you kind of agree with my sentiment that he's likelier to be not a Skeens level of effectiveness, but likelier to be a number 2 quality starter than he is to struggle out of the gate?
Yeah, and I should mention our colleague Kyle Murray, has of Scores and Odds, has actually been crushing it with his strikeout ladders of late, and he's laddered Burns strikeouts tonight,
Love it.
all the way up to like 8 or 9. Yankees have been striking out a ton, so I really like his strikeout upside. I think it's interesting that we have seen, you know, we're a couple weeks here from the draft, the MLB draft,
Mhm.
and we've been accustomed as baseball fans to see a guy get drafted and then wait 3-4 years minimum for them to make their MLB debut. If I'm correct, I believe Burns is the third guy from last year's draft class to debut already. Jack Caglione, we know, for the Royals, and
I think he's
Christian
fourth.
Moore,
I think he's fourth,
fourth.
isn't he? Matt Shaw as well? Or Matt Shaw was 2 years ago.
Yeah, but Christian Moore and Jack Caglione, if unless we might be
You
forgetting
forgot
somebody.
about Nick Kurtz. Nick Kurtz was the
Nick
fourth.
Kurtz, yes. Fourth guy. These guys were drafted less than a calendar year ago. If you're talking about the NBA or NFL, obviously these rookies come in and play right away. That's really rare for the MLB, or it used to be. The White Sox put Garrett Crochet in their bullpen after like 2 months in the minors or something like that, or maybe he didn't even pitch in the minors. I don't even remember. The Angels are notorious for promoting guys really early, but now it's just becoming the norm. Burns left college MLB ready. Jack Caglione left college MLB ready, and the last couple months have just been like tune-up, refinement, and maybe some service time manipulation. But yeah, I think that Burns is ready. I think that he could immediately be the Reds' probably second best starter behind Hunter Green, and in time could become their ace. He could become their 1-1. I don't know if he'll ever reach like Paul Skeens' level of dominance, but he's a step right below that, in my opinion.
Yeah, we may see Hagen Smith before not too long as his arm is in good condition. Probably see him at some point next year. Trey Yasevich for the Toronto Blue Jays may be up by the end of this year if the Blue Jays need pitching help. Max Scherzer's on the mend for them. So yeah, this is a very aggressively moving draft class at the moment. Travis Bazzana would probably be in the big leagues for the Guardians had he not gotten hurt as well. So yeah, a very aggressively promoted draft class. A lot of guys, a lot of good college players who just were major league ready off the jump. And I think in general, player development, college development, much more access to analytics now. I think these guys are just developing in college, getting closer to major league level on the development scale, closer to 21, 22 years old. Let's move on to your favorite props, your walk props for today, pivoting off of the Burns strikeout props, moving to some walk props. I do have a bet in the Mets-Braves game, but you do as well. Frankie Montas making his Mets debut after being a very shaky pitcher in rehab, coming off of a lat strain, 6 starts in rehab, 18 2/3 innings, gave up 10 walks and 2 hit batsmen, 12 strikeouts, 30 hits, 25 runs allowed. So Montas was absolutely miserable. He did say that he wasn't worried about the numbers. He was just effectively using it as spring training, trying to get a feel for all of his pitches. Didn't really care about the results, but he got shelled, and the command clearly is not all the way back yet, especially coming off of the injury. So you like Montas over 1.5 walks in his first start back. What was the price on that, and what do you like that up to?
Yeah, couple different walk props here. I'll kind of lump them together here. Montas is minus 200 to walk over 1.5. To be clear, this is a very juiced prop, but it's one I absolutely love. These are simple caps. Early in the season, I found an inordinate amount of success betting the overs on walk props for pitchers making their MLB debut, making their season debut, or returning from a long injury layoff. That's the case here with Montas, obviously, making his debut for the Mets. It's his first start since September of last year. As you mentioned, he was dreadful in his rehab down in AAA, which is why you're seeing the juice probably close to the minus 200 range. But I think it's worth it here against an offense that has a top 10 walk rate against right-handed pitching in the Braves. The other walk prop I'll lump in together, we just got done talking about him, is Chase Burns. Chase Burns can win this game. The Reds can win this game. He can still strike out 8 guys, but I just think he might walk 2 as well. The juice is a little bit less, but it's still up there, minus 170 for over 1.5 walks. As I mentioned, Kyle Murray over at Scores and Odds has laddered his strikeouts up. These can hit. We can hit Reds money line. We can hit Burns strikeouts. We can hit the game total over, and we can hit the walk total over. It's his debut. He's going to be amped up. A lot of times we see guys even just walk 1 in the first inning, and then we're right there in the ball game at minus 170. I'm betting both these individually. Montes over 1.5 at minus 200. Burns over 1.5 at minus 170. If you're less averse to betting these heavily juiced props, you can parlay them over 1.5 for both. It's plus 110 at DraftKings right now, plus 138 at Bet365. So we get 2 walks out of Montes, 2 walks out of Burns at plus money, and we're cashing those 2 props tonight, hopefully.
Good stuff. Yeah, that Montas prop seems like it could be free money.
Yeah.
I think I'm most worried potentially about him just like re-injuring himself in the first inning and being like, I'm actually not 100%, and then he comes out of the game.
Or getting shelled and just doesn't even make it out of the first for one reason or another.
Yep.
The problem is
Braves
if he allows too many hits.
Base hits. Yeah, as I said, 30 hits, 25 runs in 18 2/3 innings in the minors. So definitely some concern about him coming back. The Mets are in a bit of a pitching need, but the reason I like the under in that game, despite the blow-up potential for Montas, Spencer Strider does seem like he's close to all the way back now. Last 2 starts, 21 strikeouts, 2 walks for Strider, but more importantly, the velocity is back up on his arsenal. Fastball velocity up from 95.1 in his first 5 starts to 96.1 in the past 2 starts. His curveball is also up a tick from 78.5 to 79.9, and his slider increased by nearly a full tick as well, 0.7 miles an hour. So the velocity and the results trending in the right direction for Strider. Also, I said the velocity up, body array of 355 in his past 2 starts. It was 511 in his first 5 starts of the season. So I think you can say that Spencer Strider is much closer to his previous level than the level he showed over the first 5 starts of the season. This game aligns with the Action Lab system for Understreak, a 7.5% ROI this season, nearly a 57% win rate. I do think there's something, with the baseballs and with the Understreak system, because this system has not been profitable for a few years. It is profitable historically. It's been extremely profitable this season. I think there's something with teams like adjusting to the baseballs and new parks, potentially shipments of baseballs being sent to certain parks, batches of baseballs that are either deadened in that particular batch or a bit more normal in that particular batch, because I do think we have multiple batches of baseballs cycling throughout the league as well right now. I think we still have baseballs left over from last year, and then we have new baseballs from this year with the raised seams that are not flying quite as far. But that Action Lab system, overall 53% win rate, 3.3% ROI since 2005, averaged out over, north of 3,000 games. Tons of games in that sample. The Braves, though, also just an elite defensive team. First by DRS, 6 buyouts above average. Nick Allen been the second best defensive shortstop in baseball this year behind Bobby Witt. And Matt Olson has been one of the most valuable defenders overall. Plus 12 in defensive runs saved, plus 8 in outs above average. Absolutely astounding numbers for a first baseman defensively. It's hard to get that many balls hit to you, let alone to overperform on them to that degree. He's phenomenal at moving to his right, covering balls in that first base, second base hole. The amount of Braves games I watch where Olson picks something off that you would think is a obvious base hit based on the ball leaving the bat and the normal over-the-shoulder pitcher view. I mean, if you watch enough baseball, you watch the direction of the ball off the bat, you generally know base hit or not base hit, unless there is a significant shift for the team. Obviously, there's less shifting than there used to be, but some teams are good at covering the middle where you think there would be a base hit. Matt Olson is tremendous at moving to his right and covering that first base, second base hole and robbing singles from people, and that's how he racks up that total. So I make this total about 8.4. I bet the under 9 to minus 115, despite the warm weather in Queens today. It's going to be north of 100 degrees here in New York today. Couple of other bets that I like. The one that has moved out of range, the one that's moved out of range is the Toronto Blue Jays. I like them to minus 110. They are up at minus 118 now. The reason why I still want to mention this game, directionally, I was on the Blue Jays over in the preseason. I was on the Guardians under, and frankly, my opinions in those teams, or my opinions directionally on those teams, have only solidified based upon what we've seen this season. Toronto, the number 2 bullpen in strikeout minus walk rate and expected FIP. They have the better bullpen here, and they're also in their better split. 6th against lefties, 15th against righties this season. Also a top 5 defensive team, and one of the best defensive teams in my model. 4th in defensive runs saved and outs above average. So Toronto overall, I think, is a very underrated team, top to bottom, offensively, defensively. The bullpen all rank among the elite teams in baseball, especially when they're in their better split against lefties. But I think, throughout the series, or Blue Jays against Guardians, I'm much likelier to be betting on Toronto than I am on Cleveland, especially over the next couple of days. Not as much value on this game as I said right now, but just for this series, I'm very likely, I would say, to end up on Toronto over the remaining games. So just keep an eye out for bet notifications regarding the Blue Jays and Guardians. The last bet that I have showing value for today is the Cubs and Cardinals under. We bet this under yesterday. It moved down. We bet the under 9 at minus 112 yesterday. It closed at minus 120 or at 8.5 at plus money. Game finished 8-2. There were 4 home runs hit, all against Ben Brown. I don't know what Craig Counsell is doing. Frankly, I've watched the Cubs a lot this year. I don't think Craig Counsell is a good manager. I think he might be one of the more overrated managers in the game. The amount of times I see him sitting on his hands when he could be making a move is astounding. He does nothing. I don't think he does anything to actually make their team better or creatively in situations. He's just a guy making decisions, bringing relievers in and out, but I don't see anything from him that you could not get from any random manager that you could pick from any other dugout. Pat Murphy, super aggressive with his moves and super definitive when he makes a decision. It seems like Counsell waffles a lot when he's ready to make a decision. And I don't know why Ben Brown got left in that game yesterday. The Cubs bullpen was ready to go. It was a tight game. I think he gave up a home run for the Cardinals to go up 3-2, I believe. And then he walked another guy and they still left him in. And he gave up another bomb. And it was like every other manager in baseball in the 5th inning, after you give up a homer and then a walk, would have pulled the pitcher in a 1-run game. And for some reason, not only did Brown get left in for another home run, he got brought back in the next inning to give up another bomb. So the Cardinals just bombed Ben Brown individually yesterday. I think it was randomness. As I said, these teams project as 2 of the top 3 defensive teams in my model. Their bullpen should still both be relatively well rested. They were well rested coming into yesterday's game. They should be well rested for today's game as well. And then finally, this game continues to fit the Action Lab system for contrarian unders for winning teams. About a 54% win rate and a 4.3% ROI since 2005. Less profitable this year, just a 1% ROI. But overall, I do think the over getting pounded here, given the weather, given the hot weather the past couple of days, hot weather over the weekend in St. Louis, I do think the under is clearly the side. You could take it down to 9 at minus 118 is where I'd bet it to today. Projected this at 8.3. So yeah, Cubs Cardinals, another contrarian under, and then hopefully the starting pitchers don't get left in too long to get bombed upon. But before we get out of here, Colin, any other thoughts on today's slate? And if not, we're going to toss it over to Grant for some home run bets.
I just want to applaud you for throwing in that relatively hot take on Craig Counsell. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with you, but the highest paid manager in baseball, I believe, people love that dude in Milwaukee and in Chicago. Well, maybe a little less in Milwaukee nowadays after he left for Chicago. I don't disagree with you necessarily. I thought that what he did with Ben Brown last night was absurd as well.
It was atrocious.
I was watching that game, particularly I kind of get it in the 5th inning. A little bit, I kind of get it. But then bringing him back out for the 6th inning. And he brought him back out for the 6th inning against it was Arenado and Gorman. It wasn't even like okay, you let him stay in there to face Pedro Pages and Victor Scott, whatever. But he's facing two really good hitters after looking terrible. Ben Brown only 3 swinging strikes last night in 81 pitches. So
yeah, having a pitch mix is a real problem for him. It's just you could start sitting on either the fastball or the curveball. They both grade out well, but at some point these offenses are just sitting on one of those pitches, and you can see it in the numbers. He's a guy who's going to have a very goofy profile because the strikeout minus walk rate is great. It's 19%. 18% strikeout minus walk rate. League average is like 12%. So well above average, but a 4.7 expected ERA and a 6.8 or 6.13 actual ERA. Like, he's going to get his strikeouts. He's going to limit walks, but dudes are going to sit on one of those two pitches and hit them hard. He has a hard hit rate of 51% last year, 48% this season. It's just, he's a guy that you can time up, I feel like, eventually, right?
Yeah. I think that he is a pitcher that they are going to try to make a starter for as long as possible, but he could become an elite reliever. Like, he's got a starter. He's got a starter build. He's 6'6". He's like really well built for a 25-year-old. But yeah, I'm really interested to see, what he can do for the Cubs. I think they do have a little bit of leeway, at least, where they can let some of these kids kind of air it out. But in a big rivalry game against the team that is most likely to catch you in the NL Central, I know it's just June, but like, you got to be more aggressive than that.
Yeah, I thought that was really bizarre. And just, I don't know, it's not the only instance I've seen from Counsell where I was scratching my head in recent weeks. But that one was particularly bad. But to your point about Brown being a high leverage reliever come playoff time, I think that is the goal, right? Is you have enough rotation depth that you can use him in a fireman role to turn over a lineup once in the playoffs out of the bullpen, just give the opposing offense a different look and don't allow the hitters to see him a second time. Just one time through the order, I think he could probably be very effective. I'm interested in looking at his time through the order splits, but it certainly seems like there might be something there. But before we get out of here for today's slate, we're going to toss it over to Grant Neiffer from Scores and Odds for some Dinger Tuesday bets.
Thanks, guys. All right, it's Dinger Tuesday. We got a 50% boost over on FanDuel. I'm using it for this 157-1 Dinger parlay. If you use the boost, 3 legs. Let's get right into it. Adolis Garcia starting this off at plus 560 over there, boosted up to plus 654, I think. And the spot here is a pretty good one. The heat is absolutely massive over in Baltimore. Temps near 100. Ball is going to be flying hard. Going up against Morton. Morton has given up 1.42 home runs per 9. 2 righties so far this season. He's been better recently, and the fly ball and hard contact numbers show he's probably due for some positive regression when it comes to giving up home runs to righty. But historically, he's been giving up a lot more fly balls and hard contact than he's given up this season. He's getting old, 41, probably going to struggle in the heat today. The ball should absolutely be flying. And Garcia, his underlying numbers have been much better than his actual production so far this year. Around a 13% barrel rate. The hard contact and fly numbers, ball numbers have been fantastic this season. Plus 560 is just far too high of odds in this spot here. Next up, we got Ronald Acuna plus 265 over in New York, going up against Montas. Montas making his first start of the season. Might be a little rusty. Historically, he's been a slightly above average to average matchup for righty power, but I don't care with how Acuna has been playing so far this season. Since coming back from injury, he's been one of the best hitters in the league. Been absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. Barrel rate near 20%. Hard contact, fly ball numbers, great. And the weather over in New York is fantastic. 96 degrees during game time. Wind blowing out to right at about 8 miles an hour. Ball is going to be flying there. It's hot everywhere today, but these two games, very, very hot. I'm liking Acuna, and I'm liking him to hit another one after hitting one yesterday. Last up, we got Ben Rice, plus 340 over on FanDuel. You can get him around plus 360 in other spots, but I still like him at plus 340, especially with this boost. Going up against Burns, making it first start of his career. This guy is a very good prospect, but still grades out as above average matchup for lefty power. Rice underlying numbers have been fantastic this season. Barrel rate good, hard contact rate good, fly ball rate good, and another spot where it is scorching. Mid-90s today, wind blowing out very slightly, and Cincinnati, one of, if not the best ballpark in the league for power. So getting him at these numbers, going up against a guy who's making his first start of his career, he should absolutely crush today. Parlay them all together. 157-1 odds over on FanDuel with that boost. Good luck on Dinger Tuesday. I'm out here. Bye, guys.
And that'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets that we discussed on today's show, look for the quick slate links both in the podcast and the video description. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us that 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. Also, check out the Action Network Discord. There's a link in the video description of this podcast and the episode description as well. We'll be back on Friday for more best bets. For Collin Whitchurch, I'm Sean Zerillo. Thank you for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. Good luck with all your bets. We'll see you next time.